Way to go, everybody.
Thank you, hero. Thank you for sparing my life. I was not myself.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Swagadon with Swagger Gaming, bringing you another Mage Tower Challenge guide. If you don't want to hear me talk and just want to see the encounter played through, I have provided a link to that video down in the description. In this guide, we will be talking about the Subtlety Rogue, and to beat this challenge, you must complete the Closing the Eye scenario, in which you will need to defeat Archmage Xylem and the Corrupting Shadow. Before we jump into talent choices, I wanted to remind everyone that I do not play Rogue beyond the Mage Tower challenges, and that the talents and rotations I will be discussing in this guide are probably not what you want to be used for dungeons or raids, and are just what work for me to complete this challenge. If you have any suggestions that may help out others, please feel free to comment below. For Tier 1, I took Master of Subtlety because it is the highest baseline DPS talent for this tier. If you have the Tier 21 4-piece bonus, then you should take Gloomblade instead. In Tier 2, I took Night Stalker for the Shadow Dance burst potential for the Razor Ice in Phase 1 and the adds in Phase 2. If you don't have any issues with bringing these down, then Shadow Focus is a nice sustained damage ability. I took Vigor for Tier 3 as it is the easiest to play with. Keeper Stratagem is the highest DPS talent in this tier. I did a few attempts with Cheat Death, but realized if I was that low anyways, it would be all but impossible to recover from. Instead, I went with Soothing Darkness for Tier 4, which is a nice passive health regen. For Tier 5, I had Tangled Shadow, which is great for slowing the adds in the second phase. If you aren't having any issues with these adds, then Prey on the Weak can be a nice damage bonus throughout the encounter. In Tier 6, I chose Dark Shadow to double down with Night Stalker and increase Shadow Dance burst. This is probably the best talent to take regardless, but I think Enveloping Shadows can be okay sustained damage if you aren't having issues with the adds in Phase 2. For our Tier 7 talent, I took Master of Shadows because it is passive and helps to make sure you have energy when starting your Shadow Dance burst. The Subtlety Rogue rotation is a bit more complicated than most specs and took me a little while to figure out. I'm not going to get into the rotation itself here, but I will discuss ability and cooldown usage and how to counter individual mechanics later in this video. If you would like to get a better sense of the general rotation, I would start with a guide on Icyveins, which I have linked in the description below. I was 930 item level when I beat this encounter, and was using Insignia of the Grand Army and Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish for the legendaries. The Insignia is the free ring that increases Nether Crucible effects, and KJ's Burning Wish is the trinket that shoots an AoE damage orb on use. The trinket is really nice to help burst down the adds in Phase 2. I also had 2 set Tier 21 from LFR that reduces the cooldown on Symbols of Death by 0.2 seconds for each combo point spent. This was really nice as this is a fairly long encounter. This encounter has a whole bunch of different phases and mechanics that are thrown at you, and they can get overwhelming, but once you get the dance down, they are not too hard to deal with. This is also one of the only DPS Mage Tower challenges that has an actual hard DPS check in it. I'm going to split this encounter into 2 phases. In the first phase, you will face Archmage Xylem, who is possessed by the Shadow. Once you beat the Shadow out of him, the Corrupting Shadow will appear and you must defeat it to beat the challenge. When you start the encounter, Xylem will be in his Frost phase. This phase consists of a short period where he will be casting at you, followed by him teleporting and putting you in an ice prison. If you touch any of these ice coals, you will be one-shot. Use Feint here to stop some of the AoE damage, and then pop Shadow Dance and Shuriken Storm to clear out the ice. Once out, you can Shadow Step to Xylem and continue to DPS. I always like to kick one of his first casts and then 5 combo point Kidney Shot a later one. This allowed me to time my feint because I knew when he would teleport. After a few of these ice prisons, he would teleport to a random point on the platform and spawn a whole bunch of copies of himself. Note that you will still be able to see his location on your minimap. After a few seconds, you will start to take a large amount of damage. To counter this, you can kill one of his illusions and they will spawn a little bubble around them. You'll be healed to full in this, but it slowly shrinks and you will need to move on to the next illusion. You can do this until you work your way across the platform and are able to AoE him out, or you can just pop Cloak of Shadows and sprint across to him. Once out of the transitional phase, he will be in his Arcane Phase. He has 2 main abilities beyond his normal casts. The first one you will see is he will start a channel and throw a bunch of arcane orbs towards you. Just dodge these. It is better to dodge and not be doing damage than it is to be hit by one. Also note that stunning him here does not stop that channel. His other ability in the Arcane Phase is he will turn towards the giant orb in the middle and start channeling energy from it. You need to interrupt this immediately, as the longer he channels, the more damage he will do for the rest of the fight. This stacks infinitely and will make your life extremely difficult if you let these stacks get too high. During this phase, he will also teleport across the platform to just be annoying. After a few teleports in the Arcane Phase, he will hit the Transitional Phase again. Once you find him again, he will have all of the abilities from both the Frost and Arcane Phases. From here, the cycle will continue until you get him to around 10% HP. He will then throw his book down and spawn a Corrupting Shadow. Phase 2 starts when the Corrupting Shadow engages you, and you will want to drag him to the edge of the platform. He will drop a pool under him that will start to expand and do damage to you if you're standing in it. Move just outside of this so you're not taking damage. At this point, you'll want to pop all of your cooldowns, drums, potions, etc. to try and do as much damage as possible, making sure to save at least one charge of Shadow Dance. He will eventually start to cast Seed of Darkness on you. A crystal will appear above your head, and you will be connected to your character with a black line. You need to run this as far away as possible before the cast is finished. Once the cast is done, 3 adds will spawn at your location. These need to die quickly. They will start to head back towards the boss, and if they reach him, he will be healed for a substantial amount. I always popped Shadow Dance and Shuriken Storm here, and then followed it up with slows and stuns as needed. The legendary trinket is extremely helpful in this situation as well. Once the adds are dead, you need to run back to the very edge of the puddle on the ground and continue to DPS. It will then cast Seed of Darkness again and spawn more adds, and the cycle will continue until one of you are dead. Note that you only get 4 puddles before the entire platform is filled up, so you will need to be doing at least 25% of his health each DPS cycle. I did not use any encounter-specific macros or Weakauras for this encounter, but my UI uses Ipse's Rogue Weakaura HUD. I've provided a link to this in the description below. This encounter was extremely difficult when it first came out, but does not scale well with gear, putting it squarely in the middle compared to the other 6 challenges. I will say Subtlety Rogue is one of the harder classes to complete this on, because the rotation is somewhat difficult. If you want to see more different information in these videos moving forward, what class and spec would you like to see next? Thanks for watching, and have a great one.